So hi everyone, welcome to Voting 101 Grassroots Civic Engagement in Prince George's County, brought to you by Impact Now and Prince George's County Young Democrats. I am Artisha and I will be the moderator for today. A little bit about me, I've been working in state and local government for about 6 years, primarily in California. I am a government and public sector consultant for Deloitte and Impact Now's community coordinator. And before I pass it on to some of the organizations to introduce themselves, just a couple of housekeeping items. Please be muted at all times. Don't feel any pressure to have your video on. If you have any questions or concerns, even if you just need like a term defined, please put it in the chat and we will do our best to answer your questions. So now I will pass it on to Martin to introduce Peachtree County Young Dems.
Yes, how are you doing? My name is Martin Mitchell. I'm the president of the Prince George's County Young Democrats. Thank you very much, Artisha, for this awesome idea. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the board members. Some of them are on the call, but we have the Vice President, Joseph Solomon. He's also a council member of Hyattsville. We have Jawan Blocker. He is the Vice President of Programming. So he helps us get all our events together. We have Shakia Campbell. She is the Vice President of Communications. Mark Hamilton, who is the Vice President of Membership. So he helps us get new members and retain the members that we have, make sure our members are up to date. And then we have Tiffany Hannon. She is our secretary. Nikki Thompson, she is our treasurer. Tanashay Sims, she is our central committee woman. And Carl Parker, he is the Central Committee man. Prince George's County Young Democrats, we're an organization devoted to increasing the political and social activism of the Young Democrats in the Prince George's County. And I would just say, of course, you can see the slide there, but my focus for the Young Democrats is not just to be a social networking organization, but to make sure that we're engaged in the community. And with that being said, I'm glad that you have some great community leaders on here and some people who have been Young Dems for a while and have experienced all the different campaigns that we've been involved in. And, we'll continue to be involved in the future. Thank you.
And then now I'll pass it on to Shola to introduce Impact Now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shola Akinwande, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of the nonpartisan and nonprofit organization Impact Now. Since 2017, we've actually been championing people into their purpose by educating, empowering, as well as equipping leaders within the community to successfully thrive in their purpose, as well as make tangible impact in their communities. So our vision here at Impact is really just a hope-filled world in which everyone we encounter, regardless of their circumstances, can leverage their giftings as well as serve as change agents in their community. So what we do is we cultivate as well as mobilize the next generation to be social innovators. We want to thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and we hope you enjoy. Thank you, Artisha.
So jumping into the material, why get involved? Why learn about local government? Why become civically engaged? Well, the outcomes of politics and policy really impact us all, and it's not really fair or equitable that such a select group of people get to decide what policies shape our everyday lives. So we're hoping that this webinar provides you with the resources you need to make a positive influence in policy in the county. So just very briefly, a couple of slides on local government, Peachtree County overview. So up top, we have the federal government, which is the president, Congress, the Supreme Court. And underneath federal, we have state governments. So for Maryland, we have the state legislator and the governor, who is Governor Hogan. And then we have local, where counties, such as Peachtree County, and municipalities fall. And municipalities are, their geographic scope tends to be a lot smaller than counties, so they can be things like cities, towns, parishes, villages, things like that. And then just a really brief overview of Peachtree County local government. We're under a charter structure government. So what that means is that there's, much like the federal government, we have an executive, legislative, and judicial branch. Underneath the executive branch, we have the county executive, who for PG County is Angela Also Brooks. And then we have about 30 executive agencies. So those are things like the police, public works, transportation. And the job of the executive branch is really to implement and execute policies. And then we have the legislative branch, which is where policy is made, and that's where the county council lies. And then we have judicial, which is where the circuit court lies. And then briefly, here are 4 types of policies that are common. So we have statutes, regulations, ordinances, and common law. So statutes are federal laws enacted by Congress. They don't cover, a lot of times these federal laws don't cover everything. So that's when state and local statutes step up. And so an example of this in Maryland is that assault and battery are considered the same crime, whereas in a lot of other states, it's considered the same thing. And then we have regulations, which are authorized by statutes, and they're sometimes called rules or administrative laws. And the big difference here is that they're implemented for just a short period of time, so they're often have to be re-implemented. So an example of this could be, for example, in California, fishing regulations. So during certain times of the year, you're only allowed to fish certain species. And then we have ordinances, which is super important to county and municipal governments. They cannot violate federal laws, and they include things such as zoning, public safety, health, like policies around that. An example of this in PG County is a noise ordinance, which limits noise pollution in the county. And then we have common law, which is rules made by written decision of judges. And an example of this can be like Brown versus Board, which banned racial segregation in public schools. And then here's a brief overview of important elected officials, primarily in state roles. So we have the governor, we have the county exec, we have the majority and minority leaders, or the majority leaders for the Senate and the majority leaders for the House for state legislature. And then we have the 2 senators, the 2 state senators that represent PG County, which are Benjamin Cardin and Chris Van Hollen. And then on the right side of the slide, we have 8 representatives from the House of Reps, and depending on where you live, that determines who is your rep. So for example, I live in Hyattsville and my representative is Anthony Brown. And then here's an overview of our panelists, and I'll pass it over to them to introduce themselves. But we have Ashanti, Alexis Harrison, Julian, and then Iwa. And let me stop sharing my screen, and I'll give the opportunity to the panelists to introduce themselves. Julian's taking off his mask, so I'll let him go first.
Well, thank you so much, specifically to the Prince George's County Young Democrats for organizing this event. It's so important that everyone understands the significance of each of our votes, but also how collectively, our votes can make an impact. Today, I'm actually out here at a event right now where we're trying to show how a special session could be conducted here in the Maryland General Assembly, because right now, people who were duly elected by millions of Marylanders across the state, we haven't been working through this pandemic while many of the essential workers have been required to go to work, many of them without proper PPE. They're no longer receiving hazard pay at this point. So it's important that you know who your elected officials are. It's important that you know how to vote in the first place, and the provisions in place, the laws in place that will allow you to vote. It's important if you are a individual who was convicted of a crime, that you know that here in the state of Maryland, you can participate in your elections as well. But it's also important that you know what your elected officials are and are not doing, which is why I'm here today. And I really apologize for splitting my time, because you all know how supportive I am of the Young Democrats. But, as an elected official with so much going on across the state and across the nation, I think it's incumbent on me and my colleagues to actually legislate, do what we can do to help people. So I'm right here with you. I am here, I'm watching, I'm listening, but I also am participating as well. So thank you so much for having me on this panel. I look forward to answering questions.
I can go. I can go. That's okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute.
No, it's okay. Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Prince George's County Young Democrats, Impact Now, both great organizations that are doing a lot in this community to engage the community in different and unique ways, especially during this time of COVID. So thank you. My name is Alexis Branch. I am a candidate for the Board of Education here in Prince George's County for District 7. I'm also an MPA student at Bowie State University. I just graduated from Bennett College with a degree in political science in 2019. And I am currently a federal government employee working for the U.S. Department of Transportation. So just a quick snippet on who I am.
Thank you. Ashanti, maybe you can go next.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited for this conversation. Thank you, PGCYD and Impact Now, for inviting me to be part of what I think is going to be really informative, deep dive into what we can do to be better folks in our community. I was looking around at who else is here. It's great to see Mayor Tim Adams has joined us from the city of Bowie. Great to see Jawan Blockers here, some really good friends of mine. I currently work for Councilmember Tom Denoga, District 1, doing constituent service work. Before that, I had my time in Annapolis's legislature, working for the Latino caucus, as well as interning on Capitol Hill for Congressman Hoyer, who at the time was Minority Whip, as well as Congressman Elijah Cummings. I interned in his DC office as well. So I come with a wealth of knowledge. I actually just started my own civic association in New Carrollton. So I'm really happy to be part of this conversation about how to get more of us involved in our communities.
Thank you. Harrison, maybe you can go next.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Harrison Nuozo, and I want to thank Impact Now and Young Democrats for what you guys are doing. I think this is great. I'm a community advocate and also marketing consultant. I've been involved in the African diaspora and politics, just on the sideline supporting like Obama 2012 Africans for Obama. I've met a lot of the state legislators in Prince George's County and Maryland State. I'm a Democrat, progressive, and I also participate, a community advocate. I also out there in the community and participate in food drives and what have you, wherever there's a need in the county or the state as well. I'm just out there, assisting help. So I definitely do appreciate you guys inviting me to this. See a few people here, Julie and everybody. So this is going to be great. Looking forward to answer some of those questions, everybody, and just let's help our community. Let's get out there and vote. Register first and then vote.
Thank you. And Ewa, maybe you can go next.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ewalua Ogundana. I go by Ewa. I'm a senior at Trinity Washington University, where I study political science with a minor in communications. My very first internship that I got out of high school was with G.S. Proctor and Associates. It's a local lobbying firm here in Upper Marlboro, and that's what sparked my interest into local politics. And this summer, I recently just finished a public policy and international affairs fellowship program that has sparked my interest to go into public policy. So I am currently in the process of applying to grad schools for next year once I finish from Trinity.
Thank you. It's so great to have such a diverse panel. We have some elected officials, we have some students, and then some people who are just community advocates. Just to remind everyone of the housekeeping rules, please be muted at all times. And if you have any questions or concerns, please utilize the chat feature. So jumping right in, first question, and anyone can feel free to take this one who's a panelist. So what is the process for voting for local candidates, and how significant are their roles in their counties compared to our governor? Just a reminder, please be muted. Thank Thank you.
So I can take that on. So like voting for local candidates is very similar to the national level. There are some distinctions in that in the local level there are multiple positions. So like in Prince George's County, you'll see that you're voting for your circuit judge, and on the national level, like we're not voting for judges. We do have our county council, board of education leaders, judges in the circuit court that we do vote for, and then in midterm elections, you'll see another set of like local positions that you're also voting for. I think in terms of like how significant are their roles, a local candidate's role is just as significant as the governor's role. I personally think there should be a general level of respect that you give to any elected official. However, in terms of like the hierarchy, of course, the governor does have more of an authoritative role and more legislative powers than local officials do. But I think they then balance each other out. So for example, a bill in the House, a governor can like veto a bill, but a Maryland House delegate can decide whether or not they want to sponsor a bill or sign a bill, which then affects the rate at which that bill then becomes a law. And that's the benefit of having a balance of powers within our government. But again, all elected officials do deserve the same level of respect, but the governor is more powerful, I guess, than county elected officials.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
No, I think she hit it on the head.
Okay, great. So next question. And I just wanted to reiterate that these questions are actually from county residents and people on the call right now. So they're directly from your constituents. So next question. It seems like there's 1,000,001 people that hold office, school board, county council, etc. How does a person working full-time with kids keep track of all of this? Who are the major players in local politics? What are their roles?
I can take on this one. I would say that there's a number of major players. I feel like that was several questions in one, but I've been trying to tackle them all. So taking on, dealing with a family, having a busy job, I definitely can relate. I am running a campaign, I'm in school full-time, and I'm working full-time, and I still, have to try and keep up with the local and national news. So just a couple quick tips that I use while I'm working. I try to have the news on. I'm a part of several different social media groups. Everybody is pretty much on social media now, so I'm a part of several different social media groups. And that kind of keeps me up on what exactly is going on in my community as far as like events, protests, what different people are advocating for. Also local newspapers also play a huge role in keeping you up to date and what's going on. A lot of these things you can kind of set up on your phone, whether you have an Android or an iPhone, you can kind of set up notifications to receive information on various news sites. I do know that there is a lot of people, specifically what district you live on. Some districts might have more people on the ballot than other districts, but I would say that when you're taking a vote for somebody for each district, you should definitely do your research. I look at everyone as equal. Every vote, especially on a grassroots level, really will affect you. So you need to make sure that you understand their policies, what they're shooting for. And so that's what I would say is they're all key players. So if they're on your ballot.
And to add to that, for the rest of the question about how do you get to know, right, who these players are, how do you get to know who's on your ballot? Facebook is actually a really great tool. They have a town hall component to Facebook now, where if you put in your address, they'll let you know all of your elected officials from the federal level all the way down to the county level from your districts. To if they're on Facebook, they'll connect you to their pages, because oftentimes, especially when you're really busy, it's not that you don't care, it's just that you don't have the time. And so using tools like Facebook, Google Alerts is also another great tool to be able to get information that's very tailored to what you're looking for. So I have on my Gmail account at least 20 different topics that I get emails for every single day, whether they're articles, whether they're just anything on the web that has something about that topic, I get an email about it directly to me. And so it helps me organize what I need in my email, because I can go to the email and say Maryland schools. So I can read all the articles that from that day about Maryland schools. it's a great tool to just help you kind of weed through all that there is out there, because it's so much information we're inundated with. So you want to be able to just succinctly get what you want, and that's a great tool for that.
Yeah, and I have one more thing to add. I think for those, I think there's a question of how, if you're not tech savvy, how do you find this out? So if you're busy, you got kids, you're working, everything. By the way, Ashanti and Alexis, you guys answered very, very well. I like those answers. Another easy way is, for example, let's say, you live in the city of Bowie. So go to the Bowie website, bowie.com, whatever, bowie.org, and they should have your officials for your city, for Bowie. And then, of course, Prince George's County has a website. The state of Maryland also has a website. And of course, you have USA.gov has a website as well. So you can look, for example, let's say, well, who are my state representatives? You go to Maryland, website, Maryland.gov. You go to USA for senators and representatives. Prince George's County will have, the council members and everyone on there. And for whatever city or town you live in, you want to check that local website as well. So that's one easy way to think about it. Sometimes you can think of a form of which, okay, I pay federal tax, pay state taxes, I pay my county taxes, and then you can just say, okay, well, let me check this out. Let me check what's going on in the state. Let me check what's going on in the county. Let me check what's going on in the city. So that might be an easy way to look at it as well for your average.
And just to add one more thing, I think sometimes, like, given with what's going on, it is very overwhelming to try and keep track of all of this. So one way to start is, like, what is one thing you care about? For me, it's education. Okay, so with education, I'm going to keep track of just education based off of, like, my representatives and the work that they're doing currently. But there is, like, this societal pressure to kind of, like, keep track of everything, but, like, we're not God. So it's really hard to keep track of things. And with everything being very overwhelming and sad news after sad news, just start with one issue that you do care about. And that's one way to start getting involved and staying informed.
And just to add to that, for the state level candidates, if you're looking for not necessarily candidates, but who represent you at Annapolis, you can go to mdelect.net, type in your address, and it'll pop up what district you live in and links to those representatives' pages within the Maryland General Assembly. So you can get their bios, their emails, their phone numbers, their fax numbers, just any way to contact them. So mdelect.net is a great tool for connecting with your Annapolis leaders.
Awesome, thank you so much. So next question is about elected officials. So Julian, maybe you can answer this one. And the question is, how do I hold elected officials accountable? Are there stats comparing what they promised versus what they actually did? Or maybe if Julian is preoccupied, maybe another person on the panel can answer. Ashanti, maybe you.
Yeah, so that's a tough question, because I think, one, we have to establish that campaigning and governing are two separate things. There are realities that exist in the community that you want to campaign and fight for, and then you become a member of a very exclusive club called the legislature or the county council or the city council. Whereas instead of being a member of 6 million plus Marylanders, you're now a member of a 144 body that now makes decisions that have pressures, that have stakeholders that maybe not always have your same interest as an elected. And so it becomes difficult to muster up the votes, right? Because that's at the end of the day what matters, is how many votes you can have on one side or the other of an issue to push it and pursue it. They might not share your values or your interests when you get to that legislature. So it becomes difficult to kind of have a scorecard of what I was able to tell you what I wanted to do versus what I was able to get done, because there's a lot of groundwork that goes into play, especially for landmark or large bills and legislation. That doesn't happen in one session. Our sessions here in Maryland are only 90 days. So from the start of January to pretty much the second week of April is the only time our legislators get to work on bills legislatively. They have about 4,000 plus bills that come through Annapolis in that time frame that they have to comb through, look through, and make sure that there's no unintended consequences that they might, affect our lives. So it becomes a lot of work at the state level. At the county level, it's a little different. They have a year-round schedule where they legislate. And so it's oftentimes, again, still the first time you introduce a bill might not be the only time you pass it. So it's just connecting with your legislators and being very honest with them about the types of policies that you want to see, and then working with them to get other stakeholders, whether it's organizations, whether it's nonprofits, whether it's faith-based groups, whether it's citizen groups or other elected officials in other districts. Working with them on building coalitions is really, you know, the way you get movement of bills and legislation passed. But I don't think there's any real way for us to have a scorecard of, well, he said this in 2012 and now it's 2020 and he hasn't done the work. Well, no, he also dealt with a bunch of people losing their seats in the legislature, people moving on, people changing, the tides are changing. And so there's a lot of factors that go into legislating that I don't think people outside of that 30,000 feet conversation at the legislature often see. So
I agree. I agree 100% on what Ashanti said. And that just brings me to another point, to just continue to stay involved, attend meetings. If you can't attend meetings, they have meetings like archived that you're able to watch later. And that way you're able to hold people accountable. But I highly encourage you to, just like we had people submit questions for us during this panel, you should submit questions to participate in meetings. You have that right to speak up and say, you know, what you would like to see. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Julian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I really apologize for being in and out, but you know, politics is a blood sport sometimes, and you know, this event that I'm at kind of got co-opted a little bit. But you know, what Ashanti was saying is really, really significant, because you know, I believe that most people get into politics with the best of intentions, but you know, you have to work with the people that are around you to be able to get things done. And whether we're talking about a piece of legislation that would authorize for a bridge to be built, or a dam to be erected, things of that nature, or a piece of legislation that will raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour or beyond, you need consensus in order to get anything done. And you know, these chambers are living organisms, and they change, they evolve over time. And so you know, you really have to stay vigilant. And stay aware of what's taking place, because you know, elected officials, maybe they move on, maybe they lose a re-election, and so these chambers, they're never exactly the same after a cycle, and so making sure that you're aware of what's going on, that you're vocal about what you care deeply about, is really significant for each of these individual legislators. But really did just want to echo Ashanti's comments.
Great, thank you all. Another question. How do I find out candidates' stances on issues, their platforms? A Google search didn't lead too much for the primaries.
I can give my I don't want to keep answering questions.
I think, Jordan, were you going to say something?
Yeah. So, you know, candidates for any office should have a section on their website about where they stand on different issues. That's right, Ms. Deborah on the comment. But not everyone does. So you may have to go and search for their voting history if they have those on file. Your state officials will certainly have those, your federal officials. It's a little more difficult to find your county and your municipal voting records, but they're out there. And really, that's the work that we all have to do as citizens, as participants in this democracy, is do our homework. You know, I know a lot of people feel that, you know, just voting is enough, but, you know, that's not quite right, because oftentimes the individuals who are in power and have close relationships with, you know, very influential people, you know, they sometimes have other interests in their minds and in their hearts, and where it's easy to say, hey, you know, I fight for the people. Everyone can just, you know, mutter that to themselves right now. Hey, I'm fighting for the people. I'm fighting for you. But if you don't know the voting records, then you don't know if they're actually being truthful or not. And oftentimes, you know, you see people with the best of intentions get on the wrong side of issues, and then they spend a lot of time trying to explain how they're on the right side of an issue. And I'm actually watching that right now. where they try and explain to you why, you know, you should wait longer, why we can't do different things. But the reality is there are larger issues in their minds that are on the table. So please do your research, look into the voting histories if they have them available online. And if they don't, reach out to advocates who do this work, who work closely with these elected officials, because they'll be able to give you a better opinion, a more accurate opinion.
That's excellent. If I could chime into what he was saying about like ulterior motives, definitely you have to look at who is endorsing the candidates that you're voting for. If I mean, I have my own perspective, if we're going to be transparent on this call. If someone, in my opinion, is being endorsed by a specific union that I do not agree with, especially in the time right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm not going to support that candidate. A lot of times when people are given money, it's a, you know, I scratch your back, you scratch my back type of ordeal. And you have to be extremely careful to actually, like he said, do your research and see who are actually supporting these people and why are they supporting these people.
Thank you. So next question, what information is essential for voters to make an informed decision about candidates?
I think that depends on the person. I think for me, I don't vote for anyone I haven't had a conversation with. That's just my personal metric of whether or not I feel comfortable with that person, because leadership is hard. Leadership is uncomfortable. Leadership is really difficult. Governing people is difficult. Having friends is difficult. Managing people is difficult. So I have to have a conversation with someone and be comfortable with me giving them, because that's what we do. We give them the authority, the power to make decisions about all of our lives and the lives of people in my community. I often get asked, like, who should I vote for? Or, you know, what do you think of this person? And so for me, having those conversations about just who they are, why they do this work, why they're involved, what made them run, what their intentions are when they get there, how do they deal with difficult situations? Those are really key metrics for me, because anyone can come up with a great idea. I'm a firm believer in that. But if you don't have the character to actually lead in tough times, like right now, we have a legislature that's unwilling to legislate, right? We have a governor that's unwilling to govern. We have people in office that aren't willing to do the work that the people need. And so because of that, we have to have these really serious conversations about intent and what they plan to do past just the policy ideas. Because like we stated earlier, policies change, right? Situations change. Legislatures are living, breathing, active bodies that until you step in, you really don't understand, right? You really don't get what it means to have your bill stuffed into a drawer, right? You don't understand what in committee. You don't understand what it means to have your bill in Annapolis go to third reader for final passage and fail at final passage, right? Like there's other ways that they punish you other than just not giving you the committee assignment you want or making you have a shitty office. But there's a lot more that goes along in those bodies. And so having a conversation about the character of the person is so important. You know how they're gonna navigate those tough waters.
Woo! Shot. Oh my goodness, right on the head. Wow. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. So now we're gonna take a quick break for something fun. So we're gonna give away a $25 gift card to the first person who can answer this question that I'm about to ask. And just enter it in.
I'm here for that.
The chat. Panelists are not eligible, Julian.
Oh, my bad.
Okay, so the question is, what are the 3 branches of government for PG County? And you have,
Come on, Bennett, represent.
and just put it in the chat. Thank you. Oh, we have a winner. Sean, congratulations. You are $25 richer in Amazon money. and we'll get your info and send you a gift card later. Not too later, but later. Okay, so moving on. Next question. How did you all take the first steps to get involved in politics? Why did you decide to do it at the local level?
Can I go?
Yeah.
This is something we're all answering, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So why did I decide to get involved in politics? I was born and raised here in Prince George's County. I dealt with a lot, specifically in the school system, which kind of encouraged me to, specifically the first thing I run for the Board of Education, because I think that when you're talking about young people and the future of this county, if you want to see change in the long run, it starts with our youth. And yeah, I just have always had a heart for service. I am known for falling on the sword for my constituents. When I was at Bennett College, I consistently represented the students, and I felt like I did a pretty good job doing that at Bennett. So I wanted to come home and do the same thing here in Prince George's County. That's honestly what encouraged me to get involved and make my voice heard and the voice of the people I'm representing.
I think for me, it was Obama when Obama first won, and that got me energized. And I was first, more concerned with federal level, like most people. Then I realized, we need to do some things on a state and a local level. So it took a few years before I realized, everything begins at the local grassroots level. And then you have to work with and work your way up. But at first it was all about Obama for many years. So that was an encouragement. That's what got me into more into politics.
For me, well, I'm still a student, so I can't fully answer this question, but I graduated from Frederick Douglass High School, and there was a program that I had the opportunity to be engaged in for about like a semester, and we were simply exposed to like Prince George's County leaders and what they do for our community. And at that time, I knew that I wanted to major in political science once I got into college. So I looked for internships, and thankfully my counselor connected me with someone she knew in Upper Marlboro, and I was able to like go under their wing for about 2 years, GS Proctor and Associates. And then from there, like being in school, I was able to see how impactful government is, like the different levels of government, just not on the local level. And then I got an internship at the state level with the name is escaping me, but it was a Maryland State internship. And we had the opportunity to simply learn about state government. And so I had that interest in just knowing how the government worked. And because I've simply been impacted by a lot of bad decision making, I knew that there was something that I then had to do to make a difference for the people coming after me.
For me, my initial entrance into politics, into community work, was because I didn't see a lot of me. I'm gay, Afro-Latino, brown boy, and I didn't see myself in my government at all. Like there's not many openly Afro-Latino gay elected officials ever at any level. And so for me, that was really important, is to be fully myself within everything that I do, and being able to occupy a space that I want to be with, which is in the halls of power. Being my full self there was important for me. I got my start when I was around 14, 15 with actually Prince George's County Young Democrats. I was organizing a voter registration drive, because here in Maryland, you can register to vote at 16. I was getting a voter registration drive together with my school's SGA and reached out to PGCYD to come and help facilitate. And past President Maurice Simpson came out, and that's where we started our friendship. And pretty much I've been rolling till the wheels fall off with local politics and just democratic work here in Maryland, as well as across the country. I've done campaigns, I've done advocacy work, and this is really where my passion is. I really do live in a space where I'm always trying to serve others, and that drive for me is pretty much presented in this political realm. So that's what inspired me to get involved.
Thank you. I think Julian is the only one.
Yeah, I'm right here. And look, I've been watching local and state politics since I was a little kid. One of my earlier memories is going down to Florida in 2000 with my family, to try and help with the election down there. And of course, it didn't go the way that we were expecting. But, politics for me was something that, I just watched growing up. And it wasn't until I got to the University of Maryland, it was my first day on campus, and some officers surrounded me, hands on their weapons, because of course I fit a description. And, it was a moment that I realized that though I had privilege because of my upbringing, I was just a black kid, just like, any other black kid. And that there were very serious policy issues, oh my goodness, that were affecting, everyone. Oh my goodness. And here I am, that little kid who didn't have any real sense of what to do next. I'm a state delegate now. I ran for town council in Cheverly just to get involved. And, now I'm watching, just the most beautiful display of democracy that you've ever seen. I just saw almost 200 people, start, informing some of their elected officials, the president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, that they are displeased with the inaction legislatively from the General Assembly. So, I got involved not because I grew up wanting to do this. It was something that I watched, but then I realized how important public policy is, and that regardless if you're at the table or not, rules are being made, regulations are being put in place, and they're going to impact you specifically. So if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, some people say. And, I really just want to be a decision maker. And so that's how I really got involved. But, this is just such a beautiful display of democracy here. And, it's been a real tough, interesting summer for me. But to see people rally is just such an important thing. So please let your elected officials know where you stand on different issues. If you support them, let them know. If you're unsatisfied, let them know, because either way, they're going to be able to make decisions. So please speak up. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Like, I'm really sorry, but I wish everyone was here. This is a rally for a special session of the Maryland General Assembly. Again, we haven't been working. Y'all have been working. I've been collecting my check on time. Everybody else has to go to work. And so here we are. Come on, Larry, let's keep fighting. Let's go. Sorry. Passionate. Thank you again. I'm right here.
Okay, thank you all for all those great, inspiring stories. So moving forward to how county residents can get involved. So one of the questions we have are, I don't want to donate money or sign a petition. What else can I do to get involved?
I'll tackle this. Show up to everything. It's a great way for people to know that you care. Half the battle is just showing up and being present, and being in those spaces where decision makers are making decisions, or that they're informing their community about decisions that are being made. I go to tons of civic and community meetings, and I'm usually the youngest person by 20 years. And it's just because most people don't really activate their civic engagement until they own a home, until they have children, until they are taking care of a business or something of that nature, where they can clearly define how their government interacts with them. But right now, we can think of different ways where our government is making decisions or interacting with us that are important, that we show up and make our voices heard for. A lot of what I've done, I've done a lot, but a lot of what I've done has not been donors. I don't come from a wealthy family where we can give, max out checks to have people listen to us, but I work really hard. I listen, I'm studied, I make sure that I come prepared, and I know my stuff. And so at the end of the day, I'm able to ask questions. I'm able to just make a presence and make a point by just showing up and being there. So.
Yeah, I can echo that as well. You don't have to put your name on a petition or donate money to get involved. Like you said, just showing up is a huge part of the battle. You can also call people. Your public officials have public lines where you're able to actually call them and speak with them on different and various issues. Set up a meeting with them, something that works with your time and their time. They are there to represent you, so they have to make time for you. Also, write a letter, send emails. I am the email queen. I am quick to send you an email. You might not see my face in person in a meeting, but I will definitely shoot you an email, and I'm going to hold you accountable to a turnaround time. So definitely do that. You don't have to have money to get involved. Thank you.
Yeah, and I also want to say, like Ashanti said, civic association meetings. You want to see who your elected officials are, and then find out, like you said, go to their Facebook pages and find out where they're going to be a week from now, 2 weeks from now, what rally they're going to, what event they're attend and ask questions. Be one of those people in the crowd or ask questions. Go to their Facebook pages, see what they're doing. Somebody mentioned in the chat a place where people can go and learn more about the local officials. That's ballotpedia. I think it's .org. So that's one place you can go and check out your elected officials. But just, like I said, find them on Facebook, find out where they're going to be, look at what they're doing, and pop up. Find some time, pop up, ask questions, get to know them. Once you fall in love with them, or you like them, or you like what they're doing, then you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to support this person. And that's what I do. I say, let me check this person out. Let me check out such and such politician and see what they're all about. Go to one of the events and listen to them speak, ask questions. And then if I'm happy, hey, look, I'll put some money in their campaign.
And just to echo what Harrison said, I mean, I can't stress that enough about showing up at community meetings, because you just never know the opportunities that can be presented. In 2015, 2016, I was the deputy political director for Delegate Jocelyn Pena-Melanik on her campaign for the 4th Congressional District. Donna Edwards, the former congresswoman, was running for the Senate at the time. And so the seat was open. And it actually was a school board meeting about whether or not to support the tax increase that the county executive, Rashawn Baker, was trying to propose on the county. And the school board was, debating that issue, having a public forum. I happened to meet her at that forum and simply said, I want to work for you. And from that point on, that's where our relationship started. That's where all of the different tasks and the different things I got to learn on her campaign started. She would give me things, I would complete it. I, raised up my profile in the campaign, was able to be in her inner circle because she learned to trust and develop that relationship. But that all started because I happened to just be at the same meeting at the right place at the right time and took initiative and said, I want to do this. And she said, okay, let's do it. So it just takes you having the willingness to go after it.
And someone put in the chat, run for office. That's definitely key. I'm 22 years old. If I'm elected, I will be the youngest Black woman elected to the seat. It's never too soon, never too early to run for office. To touch on their questions remarks, it's definitely important to ask the right questions. You don't have to have all the answers. No one has all the answers, but you can ask the right questions. And that's what real leaders know how to do, ask the right questions.
Thank you all. So moving on to voting. So one of the questions we have are regarding COVID. So how does voting under COVID work? Do we still go to physical polls?
Well, where's mail-in voting right now? They've already started sending out ballots. So folks who do not want to go to the polls can do mail-in voting. I personally am going to the poll. I want to make sure my vote is counted. I'm gonna wear my mask. I'm gonna go up there. I usually do early voting. That works for me. Saturday, it takes me literally 5 minutes. I walk in, show them my ID if necessary, and I go to the ballot section. I'm done. So early voting for me is, I do that in every election. I vote in every election, but ballots, they should go to the Board of Election, depending on where you are, what state, city you are. Board of Elections, just go on there and do some research and find out about your ballot. Everybody should have their ballots by now. I think the application for the ballot, you fill it out, you send it, and then you get your ballot and go from there. That's what I would do. So There's no excuse.
Yeah, so I will also push the mail-in voting as well. Due to COVID, I know that a lot of us do watch the news, so we are expecting another spike in cases. They're expecting 10,000 deaths by December. So we need to make sure that we are staying safe. If you are deciding to go to the polls, wear your mask, wear gloves, because you don't know how clean these machines are. The deadline to submit a request for a mail-in ballot is October 20th. It must be in the drop box by November 3rd. So please make sure that you are requesting these ballots. If you did request a ballot and did not get it in the mail, call your Board of Elections, hold them accountable to making sure that they send you what you deserve. It's your constitutional right to be able to vote once.
And just to add that to the conversation, the ballot drop boxes are going to be at every polling location across the county, as well as all of the early voting locations. So if you received or requested an absentee or mail-in ballot, they're the same thing, just to be clear. If you requested one and you don't feel like the mail is going to take too long, or you don't feel like you're going to get it in time, you can put it into the drop box. That will be at every location. They're guarded 24/7. So they're very secure, and they're owned by the State Board of Elections. In terms of voting in person, majority of our large community centers, as well as most local high schools, have been converted into polling locations, whether either for early vote or for election day. So you can simply go on or Google just Prince George's County Board of Elections, and there's a link to all of the various sites. It doesn't really matter where you're at necessarily for early vote. You can pretty much go anywhere in the county and be able to receive your ballot. But if you do request a ballot as well and don't feel like the mail is safe and you don't really trust the drop boxes, you can also give your filled out ballot to one of the electioneers at the poll workers at this polling site. So there's multiple ways that you can cast your ballot. It's just really important that you go and make sure that happens.
Yeah, Shonda, that's good to know, because I just spoke to a delegate not just last week ago, Maryland delegate, and she said she was going to take her ballot and drop it off at one location in Annapolis. So I'm glad you said that. That must be up. People need to know that, because I'm getting a lot of different responses. Well, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. So if you can drop it off at the polling station, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yep, and during early vote, you don't have to necessarily, pretty much in Maryland, early vote, you can also register to vote during early vote, as well as cast your ballot. And if you do have any issues with the mail or just problems that you don't want to deal with, you can, turn in your ballot physically as well, filled out. Yeah.
Ashanti, could you explain what early voting is?
Yeah, early voting is something that is not in every state, but here in Maryland, we typically have the first 8 to 9 days before Election Day dedicated for people that just want to get their ballot in and vote without having to deal with Election Day hassle. A lot of people focus on Election Day, and their lines could be long. It could just be a strenuous process trying to find parking, whatever the case. And so early vote is an opportunity for you to get your ballot in before Election Day.
And to piggyback off Ashanti, I just want everybody to know that Saturday and Sundays are open on early voting. So Saturday, that's when I vote. So Saturday and Sundays are open. A lot of people are working and everybody's busy, but Saturday, when they're doing early voting in Maryland, I'm not sure about other states, but Saturday and Sunday are usually open. I think any time between 8 and 6 or so. So it's a great opportunity. Just go in there, knock it out, wear your gloves and mask, and get it done. And to register to vote, the deadline is October the 13th. Register, so anybody out there who has not registered to vote, the deadline is October the 13th. Please register to vote. It takes 5 minutes if you haven't.
Thank you. So that's a good segue into our next question. How do you register to vote? And if you had a change of address, for example, one person lived in Virginia, they moved to Maryland, but they didn't update their address on the Postal Service website. So how would they access a ballot or an application?
I can do this one. I recently just moved, so I had to actually go through this process. So in the beginning, when I first started voting, I actually registered online. And then I, went off to school. I registered on campus in North Carolina. And then I came back home and I had to re-register here back home. So you can go online and do your registration through online. I'm more of an in-person kind of person. So I went ahead and registered in person at the Prince George's County Board of Elections. And I also filled out my change of address form in person as well.
You can also, a lot of times when you go to the MVA, whether it's you're getting your permit, whether you're getting your license updated, CDL, whatever the case, you can also update your voter registration information to match that what's on your license. So that's also a great opportunity. A lot of people do that when they're getting their stuff at the MVA. You can also go in person to the Board of Elections headquarters and register. And then there's also various, I know the Central Committee here, Prince George's County Democratic Central Committee, their outreach group is doing voter registration. I know they'll be at Highland Park this weekend and a few other places. And so there's a lot of other various ways you can get registered, but online is where you can check. There's a voter lookup section on the Board of Elections website where you can type in your name, your address, and your email and be able to look up your voter information and make sure it's accurate and correct. And when you request your mail-in ballot, they actually make you go through those steps so that they have the most accurate, up-to-date information before they send anything out.
Thank you. And then one more question about voting. What type of ID do they need to vote?
So Maryland is actually not a voter ID state. As long as you can verify that your first and last name, they might ask you about your birthday and then address, you should be able to receive your ballot. I think just in terms of being a person of color, I always know that you got to cross your T's and dot your I's. So I always bring a government issued ID, whether it be from work, your school, or from the MVA. I always try to have something extra because you just never know who you'll be interfacing with on that day.
Thank you. And then moving on to like the impact of votes. How do votes directly affect policies? What influences do citizens who vote have on policy, and what's the probability that their vote will actually make a difference? Sorry, that was like 3 questions in one, but feel free to answer it.
I think how it affects policy depends on who you're voting for. And that is why we have to do research on the local officials, your mayor, your sheriffs, see what their agenda is, what their platforms are, your county executive, your council person. We just got to do research and figure out what is their track record, what is their resume, what have they done in the past, what are some of the things they're Republican, are they independent, are they Democrat, and what they're talking about. Usually these candidates are going to talk about the things that they propose to do or what they've done in the past. So that's how you kind of get an idea what kind of policies that they're going for. A Republican or Democrat, usually they stay within the party lines, but there's some who are moderate, there's some who are ultra conservative, so it's very important to know who's liberal, who's moderate, and then that way it will depend on what kind of policy. There'll usually be a liberal policy or moderate policy or conservative policy. So we've got to study the candidates, not just the party. Because, like I said, some people in the Republican Party are more moderate. Some are ultra conservative and Democrats. Some are ultra liberal. Some are moderate. So you just have to do your research, and that's pretty much what I do. I vote based on policy, and most of the times it's usually a Democrat because I believe in most of the policies that they stand for.
So I think the question was about how do voting affect policy, right?
Yeah, or like,
okay.
I vote, how big of an impact does that have on policy?
Yeah, so one thing that I don't think people realize is that your voting record, not necessarily who you vote for, but how many times you vote, is public information. And it's information that candidates and campaigns use to target who they talk to. You probably heard the term super voter. That's an individual that votes in primaries, pretty much in the general, in the presidential and midterms. They're the people that are going to vote early and vote often. And as a campaign, you want to spend money to reach those people because you know they're going to the polls. You don't have to persuade them to vote. You know they're going to vote. You just need to persuade them to vote for you. the more you engage civically and activate yourself with voting, the more you become a valuable voter. I hate saying it that way, but super voters are that coveted voter that a lot of campaigns spend money on because it's the easier voter to catch. That in itself is what the policies and positions that a lot of candidates take. Is because they're trying to persuade a certain group of voters to help and support them. And a lot of times super voters are much older, they're seniors, they are folks who might not have the same worldview as all of us on this call, but oftentimes they're the ones who are campaigned for because we know where they're going to be on election day. They're going to be at the polls. And so I think just making sure that you are really active and making sure that you vote in every election makes people see, okay, if we start having a lot more 23, 24, 25-year-olds becoming super voters, right, and engaging as soon as they can at 18, I think we will see a lot different policies and a lot different positions people are taking, because they would have to tailor their positions and policies to who's actually going to be voting. They wouldn't necessarily be persuading you to vote or, you know, come out. At the end of the day, they know the senior at this home has voted the same way for the last 30 years. She's much more worth my money than trying to educate and spend money and activate a new voter that I'm not sure will actually turn out. So that's just one of the realities about campaigning, in terms of you want to make sure that you're that coveted voter so that you have an influence and sway about the way candidates campaign.
Thank you. And then kind of going off of that, so one of the questions is, I want to vote for a third party candidate. Will my vote matter? Julian, we haven't heard from you in a while, so maybe you can answer this one. Or not.
I would say this. So, of course, your vote matters. Every vote matters. I would never persuade someone to vote specifically because two parties are the most popular. But if you're thinking in a more realistic, where we are right now today standpoint, we are not really electing a lot of third party people into higher positions in as this country as a whole. So I will just say, choose wisely. My political professor would have probably just told me straight up, no, do not do that. But I would never tell somebody that because I really feel like people should vote how they see fit. I think that America as a whole really has an issue with saying you must be on this side and you must be on that side. And I'm all for changing the status quo. So I say go for it. You never know how things might turn out. I mean, we weren't expecting Donald Trump to be elected. So you never know how things are going to turn out. And yeah, I think that answers your question.
Thank you. And then final question. Julian, were you going to say something?
I'm following your direction. You tell me.
Yes, say something.
Yes, ma'am. Look, what Alexis was saying is really spot on. You know, who would have thunk that Donald Trump would be our president, right? Who would have thunk that, you know, we would be in this position? But the reality is, you have to give the voters a chance to say no to you. So, you know, if you want to get involved, if you want to be a part of, you know, your electoral system, you have to put your name out there. And, you know, specifically to the women who are watching, you know, I want to encourage you all specifically to run for office. Don't run against me, but run for office. And I want to keep encouraging you to do so because, you know, a woman that's near and dear to me was drafted to run for office. People came to her multiple times. Hey, please, please, please run for office, run for office, run for office. And then, you know, here I come at 21 and I'm volunteering myself. And that's what men do. You know, we don't need anyone to ask us to run for office. We just volunteer ourselves forward. Whereas women need at least 3 other people, separate people, to come and say, hey, you know, you should consider running for office. But the interesting thing is, once you actually put your name out there, women have just the same likelihood of being elected as men do. The only reason why there are fewer women is because, you know, individuals have to be drafted to run. So I want to be the first to ask you, Alexis, to look at your positions that are around you and consider running for office. And once you've made that decision, reach out to me. I really want to help young people, people of color, Black women specifically, move throughout this political system. So please reach out to me. I want to support you and take it as, you know, the first person telling you, asking you to run for office. And I'll do it 3 more times if you need it.
I am running for office, so I will be contacting you for support.
I said, oops, hold on, what office you running for? My bad, hold up. What?
Running for the Board of Education.
Awesome, in which district?
District 7.
Okay, bet, I'm about to get in trouble, yeah.
No one asked me to run. I took it upon myself and saw an issue that I wanted to resolve. And awesome. I think that we are in that generation right now where women are really coming up, and we have to, you know, be that voice at the table. We're excited about getting involved. So absolutely. I think we're going to see a different wave coming forward with women. I remember being told in my, I want to say 10th grade class, 11th grade class at Gwen Park, that we will never have a woman as vice president or president. And I also remember being told that while I was in college, that my aspirations were too high to think I was going to run. So, you know, it's definitely a lot of that still out there, but I think that women now are finding their voice, and we are excited about putting our voice at the table.
Wonderful. Well, if anyone is not like Alexis and is more like my mother, you know, I'll say it to y'all to run for office, consider it. And Alexis, please give me a call.
And just to add to that, I'll be the second ask. Please, please, please run for office. I ran for state delegate in 2018 at 21 years old. There are people that asked me to do it, but before I was even asked, I knew this is what I wanted to do. And part of the reason is because I think all of my lived experiences, all of my perspectives are valued, and I think they are needed at the policy table. One thing a quote that always has been centered around kind of how I think about things, but it was perfectly summed up this summer by Anna Presley, was the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. I think we need to reimagine what we think is qualified experience or qualified anything about being in the positions of elected office. There is no schooling that could prepare you for this. There is no degree that could prepare you for this. Running for office is about having the character, the morale, the dignity, the integrity to be able to serve in that office. And at the end of the day, any of us on this call could serve in any of the matter of capacities that are out there. It's just about our willingness to actually serve and to be about people. I think that's what we sometimes miss because we're so focused on the Harvard degree and the Georgetown law that we're not focused on individuals that are in communities every day making it happen for their folks. And so those are the people that we need at the policy table more so than another, whatever pedigree. So.
Y'all are in for a treat tonight. Ashanti is so on point. I heard him speak at the protest yesterday, and I was like, oh my, it almost had me in tears. Y'all are really blessed to have this man on this panel tonight. He is so spot on. I graduated from 2 HBCUs, and I had no idea how to run a campaign at all. I have a political science degree, had no idea until you just jump into it and you actually just go for it. You just got to do it. Just no time is better than the right now. Ashanti, thank you. 2 nights in a row, you blessed my soul.
Thank you. Well, look, that is a blessing for me to know that I was able to do that for you. So thank you.
Thank you all. So we're going to hop into questions from the audience now. And the first one, Ewa, maybe you can answer this one. So are there immigration statuses that limit one's abilities to run for office? And then what are some ways for people to get involved who are not citizens?
Yes, so to run for office, you do have to be a U.S. citizen. But so I'm a DACA recipient. DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And one thing that I've come to learn is that though I may not be able to vote, I still have a voice, and I can use that voice to my advantage, and to also ensure that there is some form of change being made for DACA recipients and just the undocumented community overall. And so though I'm not able to vote, I do have friends around me that can vote. So something that I've learned to do is simply just inform my friends and make sure that they're staying engaged, sharing with them resources that I've come to learn to stay updated on delegates within their district, asking them like, are you registered to vote? Are you gonna make sure to, like, are you going to the polling center? Are you going to mail in your ballot? Things like that. And so though you don't have that voting power yet, there is hope. But still definitely use your voice to your advantage, whether that's joining organizations such as, well, for me, I have a scholarship foundation that has been to my benefit called the Dream.us, which is how I'm able to be at Trinity. And they make sure that we're informed as much as possible, even within the DMV or wherever we're placed, about the people running for office. And then you also do have money. You can endorse candidates who do have your best interest as an immigrant at heart. So definitely use your voice as much as possible. Speak up. I recently just wrote an op-ed just informing people that it's time for a dreamer citizenship. So even though you don't have that voting power, use your voice, get people around you registered to vote, make sure they're informed and engaged as much as possible, especially now.
Thank you. And just to hop off that a little bit, so one activist that's local and really into immigration issues is Christopher Stevenson from District 24. So if you all go to ChristopherStevenson.com, you can learn more about immigration issues. So one last question from the audience. What social media tools would you recommend young voters should follow to learn more about politics?
When We All Vote, that's the one that Michelle Obama is involved in, When We All Vote. I think it's whenweallvote.org.
I would look at your local officials. So I would definitely make sure if your state delegates or local senator, your school board members have social media to follow and keep up with them. The county executive, Angela Alsobrooks for Prince George's, she has a very active social media platform. Several of the council members do as well, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And in the federal level, of course, follow your federal reps, but also the committees. That's where a lot of the work is done in legislative bodies. And so if you have a particular issue, whether it be policy and labor issues on education, or it be issues of small business, there are committees for the House and Senate that push out what they're doing, whether it be for the majority or the minority caucus, what they're doing, and you can follow each of them and be able to be abreast about what's happening in the committee, in the committees, because that's really where a lot of the work is done on legislation before it gets a final vote.
I would say that it really matters what you are interested in. So for me, I do plan on going to law school. So I follow a lot of like the NAACP work, restorative justice, different things like that, the Innocence Projects. Also, no one said Impact Now, so I'm going to say Impact Now. And Prince George's County Young Democrats, they have great platforms as well. Follow them on social media. And yes, of course, your various elected officials, but I really do like following like a lot of different organizations just because I like having the full story. A lot of times you look at the news channels and they're so biased now. It's like, you can't even flip the channel and, know that, okay, this is a Democrat station, this is a Republican station. And it's like, I like having the full story. You can't watch all the news channels at once. So I follow a lot of very different groups on social media so that I can have a broad perspective. And world news, don't forget, because I think that a lot of times being here in the United States, we get so sheltered to say that what they show us on the news is the only news that's going on. It's not. It's a lot going on around the world that we have to stay informed on. So I highly encourage you to follow a lot of worldly news as well via social media and through any mass media source.
Okay, with that, I'd like to
Good evening once again, you all. We just wanted to take this time and opportunity just to give you all a chance in being able to contribute to donate to our grassroots organization, Impact Now. At the very bottom, you can see ways in which you'll be donating, which should be service and impact opportunities, professional development workshops, purpose accelerators, as well as our fellowships, networking events for all professional levels, and lastly, annual community giveaway and drives. So with that, you can actually donate through our Cash App, through our PayPal, as well as our Zelle. Artisha, if you can share that, please, so that our attendees can see that. And as Artisha also had mentioned, we do have that survey link that was actually shared within the chat. So if you can please take some time, it's a very brief survey that you can complete just to help us in getting some feedback as you all have the opportunity to attend this event. Lastly, we wanted to really just thank you all for coming, and we want to make sure that as you're here, that you also have the proper resources. So as you all can see on the screen, we do have a free resource guide that will be provided for our attendees. We will have it emailed to you about a week after this event. I know there was a lot of information that was shared, links, suggestions. So we're going to have all this information provided within this guide. So please make sure if you are interested, email us and to stay connected with us. So lastly, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for coming. We wanted to also acknowledge our event sponsor, DC Cheap Eats. They are a local Black-owned business that highlights a variety of diverse restaurants in the DMV area that provides affordable as well as quality food. So check them out, follow them on Instagram, DC Cheap Eats. Once again, we want to thank our amazing speakers this evening. Thank you so much for your knowledge. Thank you so much for your insight, for everything that you were able to just pour into us. Also want to thank Delegate Julian, want to thank Ashanti, want to thank Harrison, Ewa, as well as Alexis. Thank you guys so much. And we hope that you all have a great evening. Remember to register as well as vote.